Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a journey inward. As focused learners, we spend so much time absorbing new information. But honestly, before we can truly learn something new, we usually have to do something a whole lot harder. We have to unlearn what we think we already know. Our focus today is all about the power of perspective. We're going to see how the invisible mental filters we carry around literally shape the physical reality we experience. So take a breath, clear your mind, and let's explore the architecture of your own thoughts. Okay, to start off, imagine you're driving toward a critical destination. You know exactly where you want to go. But halfway there, bam, a massive barrier blocks the road. Now imagine two different travelers facing this exact same physical barrier. The first traveler looks at it and declares, well, this is the end. I can't go any further. My journey is over. They stop the car, get intensely frustrated, and just abandon the whole trip. But the second traveler, they look at the exact same barrier and say, okay, this road is closed. That doesn't mean my destination is impossible. It simply means I need to take another route. They take a detour and eventually they arrive. This brilliantly illustrates a fundamental truth of human psychology. Think about it. The destination never changed. That physical barrier didn't just magically disappear for the second person. Only the interpretation of the barrier changed. And life works in the exact same way. Mistakes, setbacks, criticism, rejection, and failure, they're all just roadblocks. They don't dictate where your journey ends, they're simply asking you to adapt. So we really have to ask ourselves, who decided that making a mistake means you're a failure? Who decided that one bad performance defines your entire future? Or that perfection is the universal standard? An event is just an event. It's the meaning we assign to it that holds the real power. When you face a setback, try shifting your focus inward. Instead of agonizing over what happened, ask yourself a pivotal question. What meaning am I giving to what happened? Because if you see a setback as proof you're incapable, your performance plummets. But if you see it as just information, you become curious and you adjust. Let's dive into the science of this for a second. Why do we assign these meanings automatically? Well, it all comes down to belief. A belief isn't necessarily some fixed, objective truth of the universe. In psychology, it's basically defined as a mental assumption that your brain simply accepts as true. It acts like this invisible filter. It shapes exactly what you notice, how you interpret events, how you feel, and ultimately how you act. Performance is never affected by reality alone. It's affected by what you believe about reality. Let's look at how this filter dictates outcomes in high-stakes environments. Picture an athlete who just missed a crucial penalty shot. Same event, completely different filters. The first athlete operates with belief A. This is feedback. And because of this, they stay composed. They look for solutions. Now, the second athlete operates with belief B. I always fail. Instantly, their body tenses up, their attention completely narrows in on the negative, and their future mistakes actually increase. It's wild. The exact same event yields a completely different future reality based entirely on the belief filter they applied. What's truly fascinating here is the sheer mechanical power of a healthy belief. From a neuroscience perspective, beliefs actively construct a better physical reality for high performers in 6 distinct ways. First, they direct conscious attention, meaning your brain literally searches for open spaces and solutions rather than danger. Second, they boost self-efficacy, basically your confidence. Third, they optimize your physiology. Predicting you can handle a threat actually lowers your stress response, which improves your breathing and muscle coordination. Fourth and fifth, they heavily influence your motivation and your persistence. And sixth, this one is amazing, beliefs create powerful placebo effects. For example, research into sports superstitions shows that wearing lucky shoes actually works. Not because the shoes are magic, obviously, but because the athlete's belief reduces their anxiety, leading to a much more relaxed, superior execution. This mechanical power ultimately builds into an upward spiral of momentum. It starts with a simple positive assumption. I can improve. And because you hold that belief, you take the corresponding action. You put in the effort, you practice harder. That targeted effort then leads to the result, actual, measurable improvement. And what does that do? It circles right back as reinforcement, making that original belief even stronger. This loop is exactly how high performers build unshakable confidence over time. But of course, there's a flip side. What happens when our own unexamined thoughts construct massive mental dead ends? We've seen how beliefs can elevate us, but now we really have to confront the dark side of belief. This is where the mind becomes its own biggest barrier, essentially trapping us in a reality of our own making. Unhealthy filters can absolutely sabotage performance. Fear beliefs, like thinking I absolutely cannot fail, skyrocket your anxiety, which completely destroys motor coordination.
Then you have identity beliefs, which multiply pressure because suddenly a simple task becomes a direct attack on your self-worth. Psychologists also point to irrational beliefs, like thinking you must always be perfect, which just create toxic emotional reactions. Then there's learned helplessness, where you believe you just aren't talented, so you stop trying entirely. Throw in confirmation bias, where your brain actively ignores all your successful performances just to hyper-focus on every single mistake, and limiting beliefs that destroy your flexibility when facing new challenges. As you can see, a thought is never just a thought, it's literally a blueprint for your physical reality.
So consider the stark contrast between these two mindsets and the profound difference between temporary information and permanent identity. Athlete A says, "I failed." Now that's an event. It's objective and it's temporary. But athlete B says, "I am a failure." That's an identity. It's a permanent judgment. When failure becomes your identity instead of just information, well, only one of these athletes is going to show up tomorrow and keep training effectively. And if left unchecked, that negative identity rapidly spins into a wild 10-step internal loop. It all starts with a belief, which dictates what catches your attention, and that leads directly to your interpretation of an event. That sparks an emotion, which changes your physiology. That physical state drives your decision, followed quickly by your action, which results in your performance. And finally, the result of that performance circles right back to reinforce that original limiting belief. This relentless, rapid-fire cycle explains exactly why our mental roadblocks become so deeply entrenched over time. But hey, take a breath, because here is the truly liberating truth in all of this. Our beliefs are not fixed truths of the universe. They're just mental models, built from past experiences, repeated thoughts, feedback, and culture. As the saying goes, because these filters are learned, they can also be examined and changed. You aren't stuck with the filters you currently have. We can completely dismantle them.
And this brings us to a really profound perspective found in Indian yogic philosophy, the concept of unlearning. For centuries, these traditions have distinguished between a belief, which is just an idea that belongs to the mind, and direct knowing, which comes from pure, unfiltered experience. Teachers like Ramana Maharshi taught that we shouldn't just blindly accept our thoughts, but we also shouldn't violently reject them. Instead, we have to investigate them.
True unlearning isn't just swapping out a bad belief for a good one. It's about hitting pause, meditating on our deepest assumptions, and asking, is this actually true in my direct experience? When your mind tells you that you're a failure because of one single roadblock, pause for a second. Look closely at the raw data of your life. Is that actually a fact of the universe, or is it just a filter your brain is applying out of habit?
To understand this fully, we really have to look at the underlying architecture of the human mind. Most mental performance models just try to change surface-level thoughts. But in this layered model of identity, you can see that underneath your performance, how you act, are your emotions. Underneath those emotions are your immediate thoughts. Deeper still are your beliefs, what you think is true. But at the very foundation of it all, the bedrock, is identity. Who do I think I am? Fear, confidence, pressure, they all stem from this deepest structural layer.
Which brings us to our final and perhaps most important question. Instead of just asking what you should believe, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to examine at the very core of your mental roadblocks. Who is the I that is holding this belief? When you learn to unlearn, you realize the barriers aren't in the road at all. They're in the mind, and you hold the power to choose a completely new route. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning those filters, and I'll catch you next time.